Anagha, thank you so much for joining us on the Safety Connect podcast today. And for everybody who is tuned in and who's going to be listening to this or watching this. So, Anagha is a practicing psychologist trained in traffic psychology from IIIT Hyderabad. She has experience of working in therapeutic settings, research field, and higher education industry. And now, currently, Anagha runs her own practice. So, once again, thank you so much for joining us on the Safety Connect podcast. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Thanmai. Even I was like really looking forward for the conversation and I was really interested into the whole idea that the organization was putting forward towards the safety and regulations. Yeah.
Great. So, how does one become a traffic psychologist? That's very new to me.
Yeah, so we don't have a specialized traffic psychology course as such in India. So my journey was I was into the psychology part, BSc, MSc, everything was in psychology and focused in the clinical perspective itself. And I was also taking a diploma in PG diploma in industrial psychology. It's after that I really wanted to engage in the driver behavior, vehicle design, and all of that those parts. And I decided to take an MPhil research, which was entirely focused on traffic psychology. So, which is where, like, that's when I did my MPhil from IIT Hyderabad. It was not triple IT, it was IIT Hyderabad. So, yes, that is where I got to specialize my research in traffic psychology. My professor, Dr. Ganesh, also helped me a lot in understanding this field because it's a very new field. So, we had to explore a lot of intricacies like how it's going to work and how we can conduct research in this field and all. So, we were working on that part during my MPhil period. And after that, also, he is still my mentor. So we used to have like certain projects and work or paper publications as such. So we used to work in that area itself. And that's when I thought I'll start something like an organization of such that focus entirely on driver behavior or the traffic psychology of people in the traffic.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. So, I was actually having a conversation with somebody a short while ago who is from Triple IT.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I would have probably mentioned it as Triple IT. So, my
Yeah.
apologies for that.
No, no issues, no issues.
And right, like the importance of
Also,
focus.
people used to mistaken. There is also one reason because people wouldn't really expect a discipline like psychology in a very technical institute like IIT. So
Mhm.
this is a common like issue that happens with people because there are also humanities and social science department, liberal arts department, everything in IITs as well now. So that's a very good thing because we get to expose to very high quality faculties and research culture over there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So, all the learnings from whatever you kind of got from that course, I'm assuming that's something which is kind of now amalgamated into like a course
Yes.
that you're probably giving out to companies and organizations. Is that how you're currently operating?
Yeah, mostly from there. It all started from there because even there we didn't have a syllabus as such on traffic psychology. It was mostly the other psychology papers and everything as part of the coursework. We were having various disciplines, but my specialization per se, we were like choosing on traffic psychology. So we were reading papers and understanding from the authors who are there, mostly outside India. So we also understood that there is a large disparity of understanding how it works on Indian culture, and there are really less studies that are prevalent to or particular with the Indian culture. So yeah, that is where we were entirely focusing on how it is different from other countries and how we can adapt them to the Indian culture as well.
So how do we do that?
Mostly by understanding the culture, because the largely speaking, we can compare it as individualistic culture and collectivistic culture and all of that. But there are also very, because India being a very heterogeneous country with a lot of different cultures within the country itself, when you go from state to state or from district to district, it's very different. Like the culture and everything is very different. So we will need to like engage in understanding these intricacies. And when it comes to cities, people from all these arenas and like all these cultures are put together in these major cities, right? So understanding people and taming people basically within the city limits is also very difficult, because for what is suitable for one culture may not be suitable for people from the other culture. what is even respectable for one person could be slightly offensive for the other one. Even the slangs or the proper research or everything would be like very different from culture to culture. So we will need to have proper understanding of the cultural differences and how that can be like made acceptable and inclusive of various cultures.
All right. So if we look at really ensuring that people are driving safe and there is good driving behavior,
Mhm.
a key aspect to that is like a defensive driving training that everybody should kind of
Yeah.
undergo and
Mhm.
get good at, right?
Mhm.
Now, when in the light of what you just mentioned about each culture has different nuances to it and a detailed study needs to be done towards that,
Mhm.
how should a corporate or a city, municipality, or a state approach these aspects and then ensure that they have the right research which is going into putting in place a good defensive driving program? That's one. And also, how do they actually implement something like this?
Got it. So, defensive driving has sort of a universal, thumb rules and things like that when it comes to like safety on road. But there can be minor cultural differences as well. So, one major thing that it puts forward is predicting and understanding human behaviors, which we need to. Rather than human behavior, we could say the drivers, because we need to understand how the driver who is riding or driving one vehicle is thinking or going to maneuver. Because even if you're a pedestrian or something, when you're deciding to cross the road, even if it's a zebra lane or something like that, looking at the speed of the vehicle, or how, like we used to have the problems in physics, right? Like the person is driving in this much speed, and like how much time would it take to brake the vehicle and things like that. But we can't do that in real life. Like sitting on the road, we can't do all these calculations, will the person drive or anything like that. And we also don't know the driving pattern of that person, if that person would actually decide to brake or drive through. So we will have to understand from the behavioral patterns of the vehicle. So that is one thing, like understanding or like predicting and managing driver behavior is very important. So in one thing I would suggest is, in whichever culture you are or in whichever region you are, have a basic understanding of the people around. Or if you like have a all India drive or something like that, be prepared to have unexpected things as well. So we need to have a proactive mindset for that. So that would be the first thing. Proactive hazard management would be the first thing. So we need to be able to understand and predict the behavior of other people, so that we can also predict the hazards that can come with it. So there is something that we used to say when it comes to defensive driving: assume that you are driving on road and every other people on road is driving madly, or they are all mad. So that is one keyword we used to say in this defensive driving, because we have no clue how the other person is going to respond. It might be a very familiar vehicle. For example, you have a stereotype towards a particular vehicle. Imagine like maybe Innova or Kia cars. People with these particular models do drive very recklessly, or say a tanker lorry or something like that. So they wouldn't brake. You would have several stereotypes with that. But what if that stereotype breaks is something that we need to understand. Because you might assume that, okay, person driving this particular model of a car will stop for me because they are or some brands and things we used to have stereotype. But what if it doesn't happen? So when you're approaching a junction or something like that, expect that the other person is not going to brake or not going to stop for us. So we need to have that mindset, so that even if, okay, if the person is braking, well and good, we could go past the junction or things like that. But if the person is not braking also, we'll be sure that we are not put in danger, or the other person is also not put into danger. And in similar way, we need to adapt to these conditions as well. When it comes to like cities or a new places, we need to be mindful of where we are driving and what we are driving, the kind of model of vehicle that we're driving. We need to understand if that is actually handy for us. If human factor ergonomics, like how our body is built and how it is, how it can maneuver the vehicle and things like that. So being mindful might sound very fancy and things for the things meant for leveled up people and all of that. But being mindful very simply means that you're present in that moment, or rather consciously present in the moment or the task that you're doing. So imagine you are, even simply sitting and staring at something, or like you're sitting and enjoying the nature, or sitting and enjoy watching a movie or things like that. Watch it mindfully rather than switching it to the phone, like attending the phone, thinking about what you will do after this thing, and how, what kind of like food you want to eat after the movie and things like that. Rather, focus on the movie that you're watching. And in a very similar way, when you're driving, let's focus on the act of driving, because it's not just something that we do out of uh, or something that we maneuver just like a machine. It also involves a lot of socio-cultural aspects as well, because you are going to have the control of a machine. So I used to say that these machines can be weaponized as well, as you see in road rages and many of the incidents. So we need to be mindful that what we're driving, or the fact that we have a driving license, is a responsibility towards us and to other people. So the basic sense of citizenship also comes into defensive driving. And another major factor is that we need to understand what are the human limitations we have, or limitations as a human being, so that we can reduce our risk. We have limited attention, we have limited focus, we have all of these very limited. We cannot, many times we tend to overestimate what are the capabilities that we have. And for that reason, we don't need to underestimate also, we need to understand what are our limitations. Imagine you're having a fever and you're very tired and everything like that, so you need to know that you may not be able to drive as efficient, or you may not be able to take a quick decision as efficient as you are in a very healthy state, or you had a very bad day at office, or you had like a very some sort of crisis or some emotional issues at home. So you need to understand that you will be preoccupied with those thoughts, and you will have less focus on that day. So rather than driving, like having a very sporty pattern of driving or things like that, maybe that particular day, not saying that driving sporty is bad or anything like that, it's okay as long as you have control over the vehicle. But on days where you feel you're weak, or you are in a very anxious state or tensed or something like that, have some control on it. So that those basic things, no, those would be things that, apart from the very technical learning pattern of the defensive driving, as a traffic psychologist, I would also put in these kind of things into the picture.
Interesting. So one thing that stuck is think that everybody else on the road is mad, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting framework to apply while always on the road. And another thing that you mentioned, right, which is very interesting, is that certain vehicles, certain people who drive certain vehicles have a characteristic driving type.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
uh, this is kind of, it could have my own stereotype as well, or my observation, like from the childhood and everything like that. It could be
Okay.
the capacity of the vehicle also.
I want to add one more thing here.
Yeah.
Like, because you know that like people who drive Thars, they drive in a certain way. People who
Hmm.
drive Cretas, they're also categorized in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so where is this stemming from, or what do you think is causing this?
So, okay, let me put it this way. When you're wearing, or when you're going to attend a function, and it's a very official function, and if you're wearing, you don't know that there is this particular function happening in your office or things like that. You just enter and you wear in a very casual dress where other people are very dressed up and everything. And if you were very casual, you would feel a bit conscious. As long as you are like very chill about all of these things, you would feel a bit conscious and misfit, right? And the same way, if you are going in a very well dressed way to a function, you would feel very confident also, right? So imagine this dressing or attire, or the way you appear, like replace this with a vehicle. When you have a vehicle that is like so masculine, good looking, or everything like that, certain kind of personality just comes into you, right? So when you, as you said, like this arrived while you were saying about the Thar. So when you have a very, capable or very sporty car like a Thar, you feel that you are driving something really good. and you feel more confident. So that is one, very surface level observation that I can say about this. But the other thing is like the capability, actual capability that the vehicle has. So there are certain models which weighs lighter, and for that reason it can, it has better torque, it can have like 0 to 60 speed, and everything would be like really low, so that overtaking, maneuvering, it would all be very easy. So they also know that they can jump from one lane to the other in split second. But someone else who's driving not that efficient car would also know that they don't have that power of switching from one lane or like overtaking in split second or things like that. So we know, like, to be like very honest with it, like the Suzuki cars, which weighs very less and which can be like maneuvered in a very sporty way. I'm talking about very Indian cars in that perspective, is very different from maybe other cars that are there in the Indian market. So those people, say for example, Swift or cars in that segment can be driven very quickly. So as you learn to observe these patterns with the vehicles, so if I am trying to cross a road and if I see this Swift vehicle and some other maybe Honda Amaze or some other vehicle for that matter, I would actually be little more cautious about the Swift vehicle, because I know the capability of Swift vehicle to, the spike in speed would be like really, the torque and everything would be high, and it has a capability to come very fast with, like, to me, right? And if it's again a Thar or something like that, if I am driving, they wouldn't mind a minor scratch or things like that on their car, because it's not going to affect them.
Mhm.
Or if it's a lorry or a bus, transport bus or anything like that, okay, specifically for transport buses, they don't have to face a lot of legal complication, or it's not their vehicle per se, right? So one small damage or a scratch is not going to affect them. So we have to be aware that they don't mind making a small scratch or anything with us. But our car, like, economic factor plus the safety factor, if they make a slight push also, we might jump off the lane and we might hit something else, and they are bigger ones. So in these way, we will have eventually an understanding of the heterogeneous, all of the vehicles that we have on the road. And there is also the social hierarchy and power system that exists here, and that is being evidently shown on the road also. Because the people who are having a cycle or something like that would definitely feel envious with the motorcyclist will also have like the sporty ones, or the other ones would have sort of a superiority over the other ones, because they can ride faster and in a very tricky way. And the luxurious cars and the normal Indian cars and everything on the road. So all of these people, they also know, some of them driven by drivers and some of them would be like their own driving their own cars. So there are a lot of ego issues and the complexity that are also working on the road. You wouldn't like a person who is having a small car overtaking your vehicle that has a greater capability. Your ego like can work. Not for everybody. This is not like a this is more like a larger generalization. The observations that we can make on a very heterogeneous city, I mean inside a very heterogeneous city traffic culture. Yeah.
Interesting. And the person who is traveling in that luxury car is envious of the person who's going in that helicopter, right?
Oh yeah, very much, very much. It never ends also.
Yeah, true. And also an interesting thing that I came across, right, is that say somebody who was maybe in a two-wheeler first, and then they're going into like say a four-wheeler. Maybe they would start with something which is a little more economical, which would also imply that the engine capacity is going to be not as much. And so
Mhm.
they drive that, and then slowly they progress into a much more larger vehicle, much more powerful vehicle, right? And today, what's happening is you have banks who are giving out loans in a very
Mm.
more easily compared to what it was way
Before,
earlier.
yeah.
Now, because of that, if you maybe wanted to go in for, say, a car which is like an 800 cc or a 1000 cc car, which might cost anywhere from 5 lakhs to 6 lakhs or 7 lakh rupees, wherein you would have an EMI of somewhere like around 8, 10,000 or something like that. Now, uh, these other vehicles, right? Even if you talk about Cretas and all of those vehicles,
Mhm.
they have such a wide price bracket also at which you can get it. Anywhere from say 11, 12 lakhs all the way to 20 plus lakhs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the entry level Cretas would still have like a good, like a solid engine, but the person would have to spend only maybe say 5,000 more on their EMI, and then they're able to get that vehicle. So
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of rubbing off also in terms of how they're driving, right? The way they would have been driving a two-wheeler is also now how they're driving this vehicle with a larger engine capacity and more power. So that's also something which is kind of, it plays or it has an effect on how a particular person drives.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is if you observe a lot of these people who have, say, maybe ultra luxury cars, even though it's a very, very powerful vehicle, they're just cruising, just enjoying it, just taking it all, soaking it in, and then just going at a very steady pace. Somebody overtakes, doesn't overtake, doesn't matter to them, right? So there, it also talks a lot about the mindset of that particular person. They're confident about themselves, right? They have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Their playground is something else where they're totally dominating, crushing it there. This doesn't really matter. It's it's
True,
irrelevant.
right.
So I think that understanding of yourself and understanding about what is important to you, not sweating over the small stuff, I think that's very important in the way one should go about driving, and not
Exactly,
driving,
exactly.
but everything in life, right? It has to be that way. Yeah.
That's very true. Because we take cars, houses, everything as something, prestigious and something that we can show off, like which model do I have and everything, to just show off what kind of respect you need to earn from the society and things like that. We also think from that perspective rather than like while opting for a car, we would generally look for that perspective as well, like what kind of respect or how would you want to be seen as a person, because you might only need like a Creta or something for the daily city purposes. One, you might need only one vehicle, but more than that it's taken as a symbol of pride and everything like that. People has to judge me this particular way and everything like that, and for that reason there are cars that doesn't work for Indian cars but are there on Indian cars. Or person living in city like Mumbai or Delhi or something like that wouldn't actually need, like you said, a cruise car or anything like that. But that person would buy it so that they feel very luxurious and they are looked in that way when they go for a meeting and things like that. I know many people who does that, like a meeting car and a personal like utility car. So it's
Yeah.
kind of worrying
Hypocritical.
also. Yeah, it's kind of worrying also because like with respect to the sustainability, with respect to their own financial management, it also speaks about their insecurity, because they know that if they go with another normal Indian car, they would be judged in this particular way for the meeting. And yeah, there are a lot of that, those kind of aspect also when it comes to this driver psychology and things like that. And
Mm.
another thing, while you were saying about the person switching from two-wheeler to four-wheeler, the one thing that's very risky on Indian roads is like people have not made, most of the people have not driven across various vehicles. So somebody who has two-wheeler may not have driven or even sat properly inside a car. Right. So they wouldn't know about the blind spots or how the perspective is it from inside a car to the outside world. And person who never have traveled in a truck or a bus would never know how their perspective of a car or two-wheeler is. They would have a lot, not just the blind spot. Blind spot is little more common right now. Like the word is little more sensitized and people know about blind spot a little more at least in these days. But there are also several other factors, their braking distance, everything, the way they honk, the way they turn, especially like the tail. Once a larger bus or something turns their tail, afterwards they comes from the backside, right? And there are chances that it can hit you like from the vehicle if you're close enough. So
Yeah.
all of these things messes up with our visual attention and things like that. We wouldn't understand why we were unable to judge it, because you have never driven a truck or something like that. You would never know how it is. So one of the countries, I don't exactly remember, but for them to give this driver license, It is mandatory that they drive the simulated models of various vehicles like the four-wheeler, larger trucks and everything. So the one benefit is that they would know how their perspective of the world is. The two-wheeler people should know about how the truck is. And also it's important that a truck driver or a bus driver should know how it feels for a two-wheeler person when they're passing in a high speed, because you would just shake off like if it's in a highway or things like that, right? So that factor also, they should also be mindful about that, that they shouldn't be too close to them. It's not just about hitting, but they can lose their track and things like that because of the wind movement and things.
True,
So
true.
understanding each other's perspective, not just as human beings but also as human beings maneuvering vehicles, is also very important, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Now, one other aspect that you mentioned was about being mindful, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is so, so important. And it's a big problem today, right? Because of social media devices, this, that, our attention span is not as much as it was before. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a saying, right? Just imagine if all these great people in the past, like say or Picasso, Beethoven, or even say a lot of people, even in say Isaac Newton, all these people who made these fantastic inventions or discoveries, in case they were just on their phone and distracted all the time, right? Maybe those interesting pieces of work wouldn't have even seen the light of day. So distraction is a big problem, right?
Huge problem, I would say.
So what do we do?
So most of my clients, or I would say every single client, plus me as a therapist, has this issue. Like irrespective of what you're doing or how much ever you're trying or how much ever you're educated, we all get distracted, and it's this digital gadgets and everything, especially the mobile phones, are very distraction causing ones. So rather than like say yes, physical health, everything is there because you tend to have spondylosis and all of these health issues like like hands ache and everything is there, but beyond all of these things there is this part called creativity. I'm not talking about the artistic, just the artistic perspective, but creative problem solving, just create living your life the way you want is being blocked because we are all distracted. Because you might want to do something during a half an hour break of work, but what happens is you tend to check the notification, and from the notification you go to the reels. And at times what happens is these reels or these Instagram and everything can be educational and it can have positive information as well, because even if you're using it for a good purpose, what happens is you're spending a lot of time there rather than your actual work. So we all have these kind of I would say addiction towards information. Like we need to know a lot of things, and in the world there are information that you can't process also, like as much information that you cannot process and know all of it. And we would have like the FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. So we would have
Yeah.
a FOMO when you turn off the internet or you're not using your phone for a day or something like that. You would feel like earlier it used to be just updating news or something like that. I'm not talking like a very the aunt uncle vibe and everything like that, but just we would know that we have missed out certain things and we would just catch up with the information that we missed for like 2 3 days. But now we don't know what's happening around us at all, right? When you're away from the phone for a day or two, and it's kind of for the work also, everything is associated on the phone, and it's practically very difficult for us to keep it aside for some time, because our work, our family things, our everything come, and our personal reminders as well, our work patterns, what we need to do next, every even journaling, our health apps, everything is on the mobile phones, most of them, right? And for this reason, to have a healthy distance and to have a boundary is very difficult. You don't know, and like not, it's not you, it's we don't know how to and where to keep the boundary. So I have it like on the like initially my target as a person was to keep the phone aside for a day in a week. I was just trying to experiment it. And I found that it's entirely not possible at all. I mean, it's absolutely not possible because even my personal everything, OTP, everything is connected with the phone. And I thought I'll switch off the internet for a day. And even that is not possible because leave the work part aside, but all of my personal details and everything is over there. So you can't let all of everything would be like I would feel stuck, because if I have to open my Zoho mail or something like that, if it's like logged out for some reason, the authentication app and everything is on the phone. So you have to turn on the internet. Literally all our works are almost every time on the laptop, and all you could do otherwise is just reading, right? And the same thing happens when you're driving a car also. So few minutes back I was watching a reel that it's sad, like it's more like a ranting from a millennial person who is like in love with the car engines and everything like that. It's a more like a rant that they're saying these days the cars are not just these no, there are no cars anymore. It's more like a gadget on four wheels. So all the softwares and everything installed in a car that it is impossible for you to not connect your phone or do anything without, I mean, for driving you have to connect your phone, right? You need to have the internet, not just for GPS. Imagine you don't have GPS, like you don't, I mean, you don't need GPS, you know the way and everything like that. Even in that cases, for the car to have the basic functions also, you need an internet. You need to have some sort of connectivity and everything like that. And we don't have built-in, music systems or anything of that sort, right? So we are forced to use the phone while we're driving also, even though it's a touch screen. Like even that needs to be considered more like a tab and like digital gadget only. So you are forced to maneuver it once in a while. And for the electric cars, as you know, like there are a lot of software updates happening, and you will be alarmed of the like charging points, everything like that is on the screen. So there is a study that I've conducted during my MPhil study, how the touchscreen boards on the Indian cars, especially Indian cars, because we don't have haptic feedbacks or we don't have a very great voice assisted system. So on the like Indian cars, how these touch screens are affecting our attention span and how much of distraction it is causing. So we have been comparing with the vehicles that has complete touch screens for even for the AC and everything like that, the touch
Okay.
feedback,
Mhm.
with the other vehicle that has mostly switches and knobs and everything like that. So what we found, it was not surprising, but the gap and the percent was actually surprising. So we found out that there's a large gap or large number of people are getting into this zone of distraction a lot, near crashes, and they're not even aware of the near misses. They're not even like bothered about the crashes because they're not knowing it. Most of the time they're looking at the screen, their eyes are off the road, right? So they don't know what is happening on the road, and for that reason they don't feel afraid also. But there was also an semi-structured interview that I was conducting with them, the very in-depth one, and in that they were very confident of using the touchscreen, and they're not even able to understand how much, like after which I was showing the visuals and saying that here you have made like this, you were distracted and there was a near crash happening. And it was actually surprising or rather shocking for them to know that they are getting so much distracted on the road, and these same people driving the other set of car wouldn't be distracted this much. So that was a very shocking thing to know for me, because the number of distraction plus the time that they're looking off the road is very scary, because anything could happen on the road in that time gap, right? When you're trying to maneuver it, but because once you press a different switch, or it goes by mistake to into some other options, then you have to go to home and then press it again. And imagine for a person who is like 40 plus or something like that, it will be even more difficult because their cognition, like their mobility, everything would be like slowly declining. And for them, imagine maneuvering this once. And another one small dangerous part that I want to add is, if you want to buy like a car, and if you want to buy the most updated version, or not most updated but the higher end of the car, imagine you're going for Tata Punch or like some other vehicle, and you want to buy the higher end car with all the safety systems, with the alloy wheels, with sunroofs or whatever it has, you will have no option but to choose for the touch screen. So my dad wanted to buy a vehicle, but we didn't go for one particular model just because it will have all the software updates and it needs to be connected to the phone. So we had to compromise on certain safety factors also, because I know that my dad, who is like 60 plus, will not be able to maneuver all these touch screens and say software updates and everything like that along with the process of driving. And I was scared that he would get distracted, and for that reason I forcefully didn't let him buy this. But I'm sure that not everybody would be that conscious about their age and understanding. So that is something that used to scare me a bit, because all of these things being on touchscreen, and operating touchscreen is not that easy when you're driving. So yeah, that factor is something that I wanted to put forth in the discussion.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, uh, I've also driven certain cars wherein your AC controls, everything you need to, it's through the screen, which is very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. It's,
Especially in rainy conditions, we might have to switch on the temperature, like play with the temperature and everything like that, so it
correct.
defogs, and it's so
Yeah,
confusing at times.
true, true. I mean, if you drive that car like after, I mean, like for days or weeks together, then probably you kind of
Yeah,
hang. But But to begin with, it's not ideal. And now I'm also seeing that more of these auto manufacturers, they're incorporating buttons. They're not completely doing away
yeah,
with the buttons, but then uh yeah, incorporating the buttons also into it. But again, if you look at the Teslas and all of that, right? Like you don't have any buttons anywhere. But again, there you have your full self-drive and all of
yeah.
the all of those other features to kind of prevent you from getting into a crash. But that's not always going to be the situation for every single car out there, right? So I think it's
Especially
it's
on Indian roads, because it's
true.
very unpredictable. Especially when you come to Kerala and all. I don't know if you have visited. We have like lots of turns and hill climbs and everything. It's so unpredictable, and even the national highways can go as narrow as it can be. I've never seen a narrower national highway, because we have like mountains and everything like on both sides and things like that. So it has to be like that. Not blaming on the engineers or anything like that, but that is a limitation we have. And on such roads, it's scary that you have a lot of blind curves and everything like that, and people are maneuvering the touch screen. It sounds very scary for me at times.
True, true. And so I know Kerala. I was actually born in Kerala, and then I
Okay,
moved out of born there, but after that brought up in Bangalore. So I
okay,
know
okay.
I've traveled there multiple times, and also the bus drivers are very bad there.
I know.
I what
It's
what
competition.
they're doing or what they're being told or what they're being preached, but they're pathetic
I know,
in
I
all
know,
of
I know. It's the speeding, the rash driving, the everything is so complicated in that way.
yeah,
The bus
yeah.
drivers make it so complicated. So what I do is I avoid. There are these bypasses and things like that where they don't have the bus permit. So
Okay.
when I'm going from my place to like a different place or things like that, the distance might be more, but I prefer to go through the way where there are no buses. So because otherwise things get so complicated with the buses and so unpredictable also. They just overtake just to stop on a bus stop right in front of them. And we have no idea why they have overtaken. And a lot of things. We find it scary that are they intending to kill somebody, is what I used to feel at times.
Yeah, what is going through their mind? Like why do they do something so stupid that way?
One thing I've found is the effect of drug. That is definitely there, even if they accept or the authorities accept, that is there actually. Because we have been seeing and I've been interacting with a lot of people. So the drug effect is definitely there. And then I don't know, the time gaps that's been given is said as one of the issues. Like they have to start at say 10 o'clock and they have to reach their destination at 11:22. That would be the time given for them. So they are in a rush to reach there, and the competition. There are a lot of buses and population also, because even though there are a lot of buses also, it's all crowded again because we have a like population is so high. So the demand is there, and there are also several vehicles that are coming on the road, like from cycles. There are cycle is very prominent, and from there to all the sort of like trucks and everything is still there on the car, like on the road. So it gets so complicated even to sit inside. I used to say we are sitting inside, a water theme park, like, or a very adventure park or things like that. When you're right behind the driver, you don't know. I used to think if the driver is seeing things, or because that is never seen on their face also. Like they would be so at ease that they're not even tensed. And sitting right behind them, we would be just holding things, and we would be like, even if you're not a believer of God, you would just call out all the God's name. That's what we used to say, like commonly in Kerala, because you tend to seek help from somebody to save us from the driver. So there has been like a lot of funny instances and things like that, but yeah, it's probably very complicated that way.
Why? I mean, I think that. See, if there is intent to change it, they can do it, right? So, for example, if authorities are strict, if the enforcement is strong, they can do it. Why do you
Yeah.
think they're so spineless?
I think currently situations are slightly changing because of the major accidents that took place. There has been a lot of not just the economical, but when you say the cultural, like human beings have also lost their life due to the reckless driving and things like that. So, working with or talking with the enforcement team and everything like that, what I felt is they are also trying to do their best, but the resistance from the people is also a major issue. Whatever
I find that a
sector.
little hard. I find that a little hard to accept because if I mean you're the enforcer,
Mhm,
your job is to enforce it.
mhm.
You have the ability to take away that transporter's permit. You have the ability to seize the vehicles. You have the ability to make sure that that guy doesn't get behind the wheel ever, right? Then why aren't you doing your job?
We would say, I mean, I should definitely say it's corruption because that is all over every place. It's like people who doesn't even have, I mean, who's not even 18 are getting licenses across India. I know like many of my friends also who are there in Hyderabad who got their license when they were 17, who have never seen a driving school or even the RT office or anything like that. They just got it into their house because of their privilege and power and political power and things like that. So these are happening everywhere. I mean, not everywhere, but in various places that I've lived in and like spoken with, that is happening. The corruption is happening, and that is one probably one major reason. But the other one I was saying is like a larger perspective, like about the white. Like there was a rule that came that all the tourist buses has to be colored white, so that the aim would be to like reduce the kind of competition they have on the decoration and all of those things, and it becomes a very decorative element rather than a vehicle that's taken for a tourist purpose or anything like that. So for that, without understanding the logic and everything like that, people just go for retaliating and against the rules and everything like that, and we are very resistant to changes. We don't want changes. Like if you are going in a particular way, and a very small change of having a board in front of you would trigger you. You would be like, why would they do that, why would they do this and everything. And when the AI camera came, there was like all of these issues. Yes, there would be like a lot of scam or whatever it is. I'm not very sure, like there would be all of those issues that's happening with it, but we need to look forward why this idea is implemented. If there was corruption or scam or something going behind it, let's fight for the scam or the corruption, not for the whole of AI camera, and not to remove the whole of AI camera, because what AI camera does is actually for the good only. Like I know a lot of people who have changed the driving patterns once the AI camera got implemented. Even at my home, like I used to be very strict about wearing helmets. Like all the passengers has to wear helmet is what I used to say. Even like we three of the us traveling in on a two-wheeler also, I used to insist that we three wear the helmet. So this pattern was like I was seen as a very exaggerated person in the family. Like the whole of the family, they would be like, "Oh, you're exaggerating things like that and everything." But when the AI came, they started following the rules, because we don't know where we are going to fall, right, on the two-wheelers. We could just fall in just in front of your house and like hit your head. So rules will be followed only when the enforcement is very strong. And for the enforcement to be strong, people and the opposition part, like the government, opposition and the citizen, has to cooperate with that. We need to understand why that has to come into place rather than just as a political game, is what I have understood. I'm not aligned with any of the political parties, just as an envy thing, but what I felt is whichever the ruling or party is, if they have come up with an idea, if it's ideal for the society, if it's for the safety of the people, if there are certain loopholes, help them or protest towards closing the loopholes rather than opposing the whole enforcement system, is what I would generally suggest. And that's what's happening whenever a new rule comes, because we have that inertia resistance to change. When you're going in a pattern, you don't want to change. But once the enforcement makes sure that the rule comes in, now it's all peaceful. Every buses are having unified colors and everything like that. Nobody's having a problem now. So it goes like that. So yeah, human beings in that way is very complicated also when it comes to resistance, politics, power, corruption, and all of those aspects also come into the safety.
So one thing that even these people who are in enforcement, who are maybe cutting corners for whatever reasons, right? Maybe because it's they're receiving pressure from their political bosses, or maybe their department has an innate, you know, way of doing things which they don't want to change for whatever reason. They need to keep in mind that even their family members would be traveling on the road, right? So it's not like they have this force field around them which would prevent anything from happening to them or their families. Anything can happen anytime, right? And it's their decisions which determine what effects can happen to them, their families, to society at large. And I think karma exists, right?
The
If
thing
you
is, as long as you are not affected by a particular issue, that never becomes an issue for you. Be it be any rule, as long as a celebrity or a very powerful person or an influential person has faced with a certain issue, be it be any kind of thing, that becomes sensational. But what about the a lot of Indian citizens who have been through the same situation? What is so special about the other people who can be product of a sensational news? So that is always there. When one of them is hurt, the whole rules can be changed. So
true.
yeah, that's a very sad reality. Like you were saying, that's a very sad reality. As long as it doesn't reaches their family or their nearby people, they are not bothered about it most of the times.
Yeah, true. So one thing that we also encounter, right? Like even if somebody is driving well, following the rules and going
Mhm.
properly with creating any issue, they still could encounter people on the road who kind of are angry, or they might just want to create a fight for the heck of it. Right? Just want,
Mhm.
maybe it's that I don't know, it's just a group of friends who are together, they just want to do something because they're bored. Right? In that
Yeah.
situation, how do you think one should navigate it?
So, one thing about generally about the reckless driving, about the road rage and things like that is we need to be one. It's more like a defensive strategy that we need to use, irrespective of the fact that if they were right or wrong or whatever it is. If you find that the situation is dangerous, you need to stay calm and composed for your own well-being. So rather than the other person would be the person who's wrong there, they might have done a very bad thing, but rather than teaching a lesson or anything, it might sound like a very good thing to a whole humanity as such, like a positive punishment and things like that. They should also know what it feels to have things like that. But for the moment, for your own safety, especially while you have a vehicle on hand, what you need to do is stay calm and composed at the first thing. Like, it could be, it might sound very artificial, it might look very artificial when you do that, but count down from 10 to 0 or something like that, so that you just breathe in and breathe out once, and then think if it's actually worth a fight or worth speaking out or anything like that. Because the first thing that you need to do is to avoid engagement with such people. So if somebody is showing road rage with you, just avoid the engagement at first, because it's not safe for you to engage with somebody who is emotionally and with all the adrenaline rush and everything like that. There will be like in a very spike situation. So the first thing would be, we would have resistance because we also have the same emotions. We would feel like if they can show, what can't why can't I also have power, I can call this person and everything like that. But irrespective of all the power and everything you do, what if they have a knife or a gun or something like that? It's all gone. Right? I mean, people are like that. So considering those situations, and it might affect the person who was traveling with you as well, who
If
have,
it's really,
yeah,
then
it's a
it's all
family or a close friend or a colleague or somebody who trusted you and who's coming with you. Nothing might happen to you because you know all of these defensive skills and everything like that. Maybe you know martial arts, or you know how to drive very fast and things like that. But the other fellow, who poor fellow who's sitting with you, may not know any of these, and that person can fall into trap. More like a very, like, movie twist and everything like that. So the first thing is to like stay calm. Second would be to avoid the engagement, any sort of engagement with that person or with the situation that you're having. And
so,
yeah, so,
so I
and
have a
then
question.
you have, yeah, sure, sure, sure.
I have a question there, right? So, okay, I'm in a situation, I'm at a traffic stop, and somebody is just very raged, and then their vehicle is in front of me, and then they're coming towards my vehicle to maybe pick up a fight, right? What should I do in that situation?
I would really suggest that we have a dash cam, or even if it's for a two-wheeler, have some material to document it, because that time may not be the right time to respond it. Just diffusing the situation, just escaping from the situation would be the ideal one. Or if it's that dangerous, say you're sure that that person is going to hit you or like do something on you, seek help, like call the police. Like your strategic brain, or the logical brain, has to work rather than the emotion, because you might feel that you need to respond at least like verbally. You need to have a very powerful debate with the person why the person was wrong and things like that. I have also done the same mistake, but there is no use is what I have
Yeah.
understood, because you will lose your energy, you will get a bad migraine. That person, you have the fear for a couple of days. What if the person retaliate or is following you and things like that, right? So the best part to retaliate with such people would be to document it and give a complaint officially, or just follow up in that way, and if possible in a very anonymous way, because why would you want to waste your energy for such people? So avoiding physical and even the mental trauma is also very important here. So document it. Having dash cams or the other kind of cameras on vehicle is very, very, very important,
Got it.
because starting
Uh-huh.
from insurance and things like that to avoiding such dangerous situations, you can have it. So
Understood.
that's totally worth the, it starts from 4,000 range, I guess, like the very good ones. So it's totally worth the amount is what I've felt.
So dash cam, and then if somebody is coming towards your vehicle, then probably just stay in the vehicle and call for help, right?
Yeah,
Or if two-wheeler, maybe then go towards where the cops are, because almost every
exactly.
junction would somebody or the other who's
Yeah,
there. So I think that would be helpful. And also another thing, right? Instead of like confronting the person, or it's also about your body language, your tone, all of that,
very
which is
much.
important to kind of be under check to diffuse that situation. If somebody is very raged, you can't talk to them louder. It doesn't help, right? Ask them, okay, what happened? I mean, just
Yeah.
like throw them off guard. I think that's what is going to be important to kind of.
Acknowledging and even apologizing in such situations can be a defensive way for us. Say that, okay, some mistakes happen from my side also, let's talk about it, or like I'll give you my number so that we can talk tomorrow. Like, make it, how to, like, how we deal with negotiations and things like that in a corp. Everybody would know that how to deal with that with a shopkeeper and everything like that, right? So use the same strategy, prioritize your safety, like negotiate for your safety. And what happens is not just the active aggression, yes, is evident, but very passive aggression can also be like, very triggering and provocative, because if you're saying in very, the scripted language and things like that, and your body language or your tone can speak for it, right? The way you talk, or there is this way where teachers mock you in the class. They would be very respectful, they would only just say the very democratic all of such words, but it hurts, right? That as a child you were hurt, as like the teachers has that way of talking, the principals and teachers and all of those people. So there are people on the road who does the same thing, which again can cause a lot of provocative element over there. So just avoid it, just keep your that ego part of yours aside, and prioritize yours and your people's safety and the other persons as well. If there are situations where we actually made the mistake, and we know that we are dangerous person there, we are capable of hurting the other person. So in such situations, let's not go, one mistake happened, just acknowledge it, just push the conversation, just bargain time, so that both people just get over the shock of the incident. So bargain time and like make it like tomorrow or evening. Why not we talk about this in the evening? I'll visit your office, give me your address or give your card, so that it sounds credible as well. I am this person. I'll give you my number or something like that. This is my address. You can contact me, or allow them to take a picture of your driving license or something like that. Because you have a you what your side is, and just diffuse a situation would be the easiest thing to do.
Hmm. Understood. Interesting. This actually reminded me of a conversation I had with a couple friend of mine. So they would have a fight, okay, and the The wife was very angry, and the husband came home quite late in the night, and so she wanted to kind of like clear the air that night. But then the husband was like, "Okay, I'm really tired now because I had a long day at work. Wake me up at 7 a.m. tomorrow, and then we'll fight." You know. So that was their strategy, and then the fight never happened at 7 a.m. So
Yeah.
that kind of applies to what can be done in this
I
situation.
used to tell this to most of my couples, like when they come for therapy and like that. Even if you're scared that you will forget about the fighting, write it on a sticky note and stick it on the fridge, I would say, to fight tomorrow. So that you the fight might still happen and you want that fight. At times these kind of arguments also are also healthy, because there needs to be like, they need to sort out if somebody is coming late, what needs to be done, and all of these issues, rather than happening again and again, they need to sort it out. But not at that point when you're actually raged and you're filled with emotion and things like that. So sticking in like sticky notes are very helpful way to communicate these kind of issues at the home. So yeah, so another thing is like, you understood that you have like had a minor scratch or something on the car while you were parking and you don't find a driver. The best thing that you can actually do, like, the basic courtesy or the manners that you can do is write your number and everything like that, acknowledge that it is you who have done it, and you can like contact me in this number so that we can talk about it. What will happen is, otherwise if the person finds out through the CCTV and everything like that, it's going to be a mess around. That
Mhm.
person would come to your place, identify you, like call you swear words and everything like that. So to avoid, like, you might need to spend like a couple of thousands, but you can avoid a lot of other issues. That car might be in the name of your partner or in the name of your son or father or things like that, so they don't need to face all these complications. So
Mhm.
see if these issues can be settled in an easier way, because we actually need to have that, anxious self as well. Like, what if it goes wrong? What if the person is very powerful, or even a very bad person, and what if the person come in search of the vehicle and harms the other people in the vehicle? So I am someone who overthinks a lot about these things, and that's probably why I've chosen traffic psychology as well, because I had this passion for driving. I really love driving, and the act of like being on the vehicle, controlling the vehicle and things like that. The maneuvering part is something that would like really, I'm very passionate about it. At the same time, I am shit scared about this being disabled. I hate being disabled. Being killed on road is still fine, but being disabled is something that scares me like anything. So for that reason, I've started applying the psychology, behavioral science that I learned on the road to understand. And those times I didn't even know that there's a field called traffic psychology, that traffic psychology existed and everything. I never knew it, but I was trying to apply all the behavioral sciences and theories that I found to be effective on the road, and I started getting the kick of it, to be honest. I started feeling, okay, now I can better control the other people. The way I behave, people would reciprocate in that way, right, at times. So if I behave in particular way, I can also positively manipulate the other people and the culture around me. My father's driving pattern changed, and like there are a lot of people who changed because I drive this way. And anonymous people also, we can actually change. Random person on the road also we could change, because like stopping for the zebra line and just giving them outright signals that they can pass, or while crossing the roads, I used to put like light the torch of my like watch on, and I used to wave it to the vehicle, so that I find it very safe to cross the road, even when there is a zebra cross or anything like that. I never wear very dark clothes on the road at night. So these are things that I identified because I learned psychology, and I know how visual attention can play with human beings, like how distracted we can be and things like that. So even if they're distracted, waving a torch would actually help to understand that you, especially in outskirts and everything, crossing roads can be like really tough. So IIT used to be in a like very outskirt place. So that is when I learned this process. And it's after that that I actually understood that there's a particular field called traffic and transportation psychology, and we can actually work on that part.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, what's the one message you want to leave people with?
Uh, I would say one thing, like we started with mindful driving and things like that. So I would again wish to, end in that way itself, because driving is more than just an act of moving from one place to the another. It can be like transportation is one place to the another, but when it comes to driving, it's just not just moving from one place to the another, and it can affect a lot of people around you as well. It's not just about you or just your family or things like that. It's more like a ripple effect. And in the same way, if you're changing your patterns, as I was saying, if you're trying to work on it, it might get little difficult for say a week or a month or something like that to create a new habit or change your pattern. But it can definitely have a ripple effect, and it can change our society as a whole, not just for the driving alone, but general sense of citizenship and everything like that. So to live and to rather mindfully live is very important. And on the road also, it would be like really peaceful. I found it very peaceful after that, actually, like learning to mindfully be on the road and learning the defensive driving, active driving strategies and everything like that. So it was a little difficult to find the resources, study about it, but then it is worth the effort is what I felt. So that is something I would say, like be patient about yourself, stay alert, stay calm, and be mindful on the road is something that I would really wish to say.
I learned a lot from this conversation, and it was an
Same,
absolute pleasure
likewise. Yeah.
to you. And thank you so much for joining us on the Safety Connect podcast.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.